Mr. Ani Bahagia is an expert associate with the company, and he is really passionate about how technology can power off the digital transformation. A key player within the company that looks into how extensive expertise can be leveraged from mobile and IoT to serve clients in the most efficient way.
Thanks for having me here, and thanks to the APARA team. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ani Bhavikar. I am a Vice President and Junior Partner at McKinsey & Company, based in Singapore. I'm very excited to speak to you about how digital technologies are being used to increase the productivity of the construction industry today, very relevant to smart cities. Oliver, I think you have my slides, if you don't mind presenting them.
Yep, they're being shared now.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. So to quickly introduce myself and my background, I've been a consultant for about 6 years, but for most of my career prior to that, I have been a product manager. I was part of the core team that designed and built Android and launched it globally on the first, second, and third smartphones back in the day. And then after that, I was at Microsoft trying to replicate the success of Android and build the new iPhone killer. Clearly, that didn't have the same level of success that Android did, since the iPhone is still very much alive and kicking, and Microsoft's Windows Phone platform is no longer existent. But I've also been involved in the digital startup ecosystem, the smart cities ecosystem for the last 15 years as an investor, as a mentor, and a founder. So with that in mind, I would love to take you into the presentation. I have a lot of content on this topic. I'll walk you through roughly 85 slides in the next 15 minutes. Okay, I'm kidding. I only have about 10 to 12 slides. So do not intend to enable death by PowerPoint. So if we go to the next page, the three things that we will talk about today are, first, the productivity challenge the construction industry has today, and why is there an active call for disruption. The second thing we will visit is the digital landscape and the ecosystem that can power the construction industry today, and that powering has already started. And then the third step is, what are the steps that you should embark on to enable this digital transformation for your projects, for your smart city projects, for your consulting projects and construction projects. So let's jump right into it. If we go to the next page, you will see that construction used to be one of the most meaningful industries that humans participated in. Magnificent monuments and lasting structures have been created by this industry. And even today, 13% of the global GDP, about roughly $9.5 trillion, comes from construction. But productivity of construction has not kept up with other industries. And that's the chart on the right-hand side. You'll see that starting at roughly some point in 1994-95, industries like manufacturing and construction have been at the same level. But manufacturing since has made tremendous progress in productivity, which is basically measured by the value added per hour that is worked. And construction, unfortunately, lags significantly, not only compared to manufacturing, but also compared to the average productivity in the economy. So this is very concerning, especially since the gap is actually widening over the last few years. On the next page, you will see that the lagging productivity costs are significant. Globally, the lagging productivity of construction costs us $1.6 trillion per year. And this is huge. And this is the economic value that is lost, right? Because construction is not as productive as it should be, could be. Now, while a bulk of that comes from North America, and obviously Europe and the Middle East are non-trivial as well, the value lost for us in our region, in APAC, is over $440 billion every year, each year. So this is something that obviously has to be addressed as soon as we can. So how do we solve for this? right? On the next page, you will see clearly that we think digital technology is the most promising lever for productivity improvements, obviously. We've looked at multiple levers in construction, including regulation enhancement, and obviously that's a huge enabler. We've looked at design and engineering improvements. We've looked at on-site execution, to better collaboration and contracting, to procurement, supply chain management, and capability building. And across all of these, digital technologies have had the highest percentage impact on productivity improvement with a focus on construction. So this is really what the rest of my presentation is going to be focused on. So if you go to the next page, this is the digital landscape and how we tap into it. In 2017, we mapped the digital landscape for construction, focused on 1,000 companies that were in the construction phase of projects, and we uncovered 3 distinct clusters of innovation. The first cluster was focused on on-site work, and this is where a lot of new companies and existing companies were investing in digital technologies. And that's the light blue line that you see on the chart. The second cluster was the back office cluster. And this is where, construction back office, ops and management, pre-construction scheduling comes in. And this is the identified by the blue line. And last but not the least is the collaboration cluster. So these were the 3 distinct clusters that we saw were innovating with the digital technologies. And we saw that there was a total investment of about $9 billion across these 3 clusters in 2017. The thickness of the lines between the ovals is a indication of some of the digital solutions meeting the needs of multiple subsets of a specific cluster or even cross-cluster. So this was the situation in 2017. Inspired by this finding, the significant amount of investment and the innovation, we ran the same survey in 1 year, in 2018. On the next page, you will see what we find, that it is no longer even similar looking. The digital innovation ecosystem looks very different with very interesting movements. The second year, we actually interviewed 2,400 firms, and not just focused on construction phase, but across the 3 phases and 3 clusters and the full project lifecycle. So the 3 clusters still bubbled up, right? Those are indicated in different colors on the page that you see. But what was very interesting is that we no longer had clusters. It began to look like constellations because the amount of innovation that went into digital technologies had gone through the roof. And we also saw that the investment had actually doubled from $9 billion to $18 billion. And this was very exciting. Clearly, we then tried to identify themes within this huge constellation of innovation that's happening across the full project lifecycle. And those themes that bubbled up are illustrated on the next page. So we were able to identify about 5 distinct innovation themes in constellations across back office, on-site, and digital collaboration. And these are the themes that we think are extremely exciting. And we're going to talk about 2 or 3 of these themes today. The ones that I'm personally most excited about is obviously AI and analytics. And this is, I guess, why we're here talking about AI today. The second is Internet of Things, 3D printing and robotics is very interesting. And obviously digital twins. So we'll talk about all of these in a bit of a deep dive section. But I wanted to give you a little bit of overview of how these themes actually came to be. And this is from the survey of over 2,400 companies over a 2-year period. So if you move on to the next page, the top 3 technologies, right, if we bucket these technologies that we're interested about, are artificial intelligence, IoT and digital twin, and robotics and 3D printing. And we will go through each of these in a bit of a deep dive over the next few minutes. So let's start off with obviously the topic that is closest to everyone's mind and attention. That's AI. So if you think about artificial intelligence for construction, AI can really revolutionize the way we do claims management to start with. Neural networks exist today that can help owners and firms alike to understand the likelihood that a contractor or a subcontractor will file a claim. And this enables owners and firms to proactively allocate contingencies and deploy targeted mitigation plans, right? So that's just the first thing that AI can help with. If you start to think about how AI can boost project monitoring and risk management, you'll realize that these applications would dramatically reduce decision-making cycles in a construction project from a monthly basis to a daily basis, right? Through full attention to project and budget updates. Then the third is this can recommend to engineers and architects the use of specific claim design, such as structural solutions based on specific criteria, including cost of ownership, execution timelines, and the likelihood of mistakes that happen during execution. And the last advantage is to build the commercial excellence and gain a competitive edge. Both supervised and unsupervised learning algorithms can boost E&C companies' win rates. They can help enhance margins and also ensure that project value is retained. So there's significant ways that AI can really help the construction industry overall. Now, the second set of technologies that we want to talk about is IoT and digital twin, and that's on the next page. Oliver, can you scroll down a bit further so that the entire page is visible? Perfect. So with IoT and digital twin, this can be bifurcated into two parts. So the first part is an integration into the 3D model and data collection. That's the second part. If you start off with the 3D model, digital twin helps us bring an exact digital replica of a project's physical reality, including the dimensions and the locations of all physical components, to compare digital objects with physical objects. For the progressing of the project, you can rapidly advance the accuracy of scan data, allowing for incorporation of as-built data into 3D models for automation and real-time progress updates. And with augmented reality, users can virtually interact with mixed reality of the 3D model and as-built configurations. So you have now a real model of truth, right? With hardware and software designed with AI for the first time for collection of statistical production data to optimize construction and operation of capital projects. And this is incredibly empowering for everyone in the construction industry. Now, on the data collection side, obviously the Internet of Things plays a significant role. In addition, for surveying, 2D and 3D mapping and photography of large areas down to millimeter precision is possible in the remote operation of drones. And we're seeing that a lot with every month that passes. Also for inspection, again, we're seeing drones used extensively for remote monitoring and infrastructure operations. So this is almost in a way companies leapfrogging technologies to enable significant outcomes. The third suite of technologies that we're excited about is robotics and 3D printing. Now, robotics and 3D printing are pushing the industry towards a mass production system. In robotics specifically, the automated prefab process robots are turning drawings, 2D drawings or 3D models into prefab components. Leading-edge construction robotics are being deployed. We are seeing a prevalence of bricklaying robots or welding robots across the board. And the proliferation of autonomously driven machinery and heavy equipment is making construction safer, faster, and more affordable. Lastly, wearable robotics or exoskeletons are also contributing towards enhancing the safety and productivity of people in general. Regarding 3D printing, we are seeing a prevalence of metal 3D printing, and this is reducing the long lead times of items like joints that are needed, and also concrete 3D printing. which is significantly preventing the wastage of materials. So these, in a nutshell, are the bulk of technologies that we are excited about, that we are seeing continue to drive significant impact at a construction site. So if you go to the next page, we will get into the last section of what is it that you and I should be doing to enable this transformation, right? Not just for a pilot program, but also across the board. So before we get into the steps for digital transformation, right, let's acknowledge that we are starting to see a lot of change, but there is significant amount of room to grow. If you look at the chart, the levels of digitalization across industries on the left-hand side, construction is at the bottom of the list, ahead only of agriculture and hunting. And in terms of R&D investment, we have seen less than 1% of revenue being spent on R&D in the construction in the construction industry from 2006 to 2013. And in terms of IT spend, it's only roughly about 2% of revenues, again, at the bottom of the list of all industries. So my second last slide then is, how do we best overcome these challenges? There are 5 steps that you need to embark on. The first step is to identify a strategy, because technology for the sake of technology is never a good idea. So you have to have a strategy that identifies what is the value at stake and what are you trying to solve for. The second step is to curate a digital ecosystem. Not all of the smartest people in the world work in any one given organization. So it is extremely important to use the strengths of the ecosystem and identify the value capture against your first step, right, in terms of the value at stake that you identified. Then the third step is to identify the hard decisions that you want to solve for using AI and analytics, using this data that you currently have, which then leads you to the fourth step. You get to identify data gaps, and you need to get new data sources to fill these data gaps. You can use the Internet of Things. And the last step is to upskill your people. Sorry. Can you hear me again?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So the last step is for companies to upskill your people and invest in IT and organizational capability building. So the 5 steps will help you build a strong data foundation. If you can go to the next page. This data foundation then becomes your single source of truth, available from the boardroom to the site. And as your projects and project management becomes more digital, it is also important to invest in training your existing staff and hiring new digital talent to build that digital core capability. And last but not the least is digital participation. This needs to start at the core of all bidding projects and project setup. And these are your supportive contract strategies to keep you in this virtuous cycle of being in digital transformation across the board. So a combination of the 5 steps that I spoke about and the 3 enablers that you see on the page will really help you increase the productivity of construction projects. This is my last slide and the summary of my presentation. I trust that this has been helpful to everyone. I know we're out of time, so if you have questions, please do reach me via email or connect with me on LinkedIn. Really enjoyed talking to all of you today, and back to you, Oliver.
Thank you, Ani. That's wonderful. In fact, from a human-centric approach to smart cities, we now look at the different